It's Joe Mullings from 160 Studios in Delray Beach, and it's more AvaMed for you, and especially today I'm excited. I am getting a chance to sit with three of the founders of MedTech Color, a very, very important organization in general, but especially to the MedTech industry. So my guests today, and I'm covering the continent because they're with me from three different places in our beautiful country. First up is Angelique Johnson. Angelique is in Louisville, Kentucky. Angelique, thanks for joining us.
Wonderful to be here.
Javier Evelyn is in Detroit, Michigan, of course. Javier, hello.
Hey, Joe, thanks so much for having me.
You got it. And then Kwame Ulmer, and Kwame is in Los Angeles. And good to see you again, my friend.
Oh, it's good to see you, Joe.
Yeah. And so MedTech Color is a powerful organization in regards to what it stands for, and it's what it's trying to move forward with initiatives. Kwame, would you share for those who may not be aware of the initiatives of MedTech Color and the importance of the organization?
Yeah, I'll talk about a few and maybe how they weave into AvaMed. So we have a mission to advance the representation of people of color in the medical device industry, whether you're in diagnostic, traditional med tech, or digital health. And the work that we've been engaged in is building a community. That's one of our core objectives. And we do that through a program we call the Networking Breakfast that actually grew from 75 the first year to over 200 the second year. Now we're in our third year, and we expect virtually to have over 400 participants. And we believe that's a place where no matter if you're from Johnson & Johnson or Medtronic or a partner at a law firm with a medtech practice, you can come, network, and help each other in a meaningful way. We also are engaged, and Neda Hanafi is leading this in programs to diversify clinical trials, and we could dive into that a bit more. She's really taken the leadership role in that area. And our last big program is a pitch competition to provide capital to early stage founders with diverse founding teams. And we're actually settling on companies that don't just have an African American or Latinx face at the head, but people of color have a controlling position in that company. And we want to give them some capital and access to support to move to the next major milestone. So that's us in a nutshell in our major programs.
And so the MedTech Color Breakfast with AvaMed, I know the AvaMed show is coming up very shortly. In fact, I think it started, the virtual show. I had Ray and Scott on the day before yesterday. How does that work out? Who could share with me a bit about the breakfast with some details, and what day is it, what time is it, and how do we attend?
Javier, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so definitely mark it on your calendar. October 7th, we're looking at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. We're going to be joined by a wonderful group of individuals. Celebrity chef has joined us as well, Carla Hall. If you love good food and you think you know how to cook, I think you should show up at minimum. But ultimately beyond that, obviously, folks like Cindy Kent. We obviously have folks like the CEOs of some of the top companies in the country, like Stryker, et cetera. You name it, we're going to have it for the most part. And as Kwame mentioned, we started off last year with a smaller amount of folks, and it wasn't just, I would say, just word of mouth that got it to spread. It was just us. Obviously we're not able to get in front of each other, but just as Kwame's rocking the lapel at this point, getting around and just talking with the right folks. And it wasn't just folks that looked like us, it was a lot of allies and a lot of community stakeholders. So to have a diverse room of folks that really care about this problem, not just as something that can, aid to the bottom line, because 2020 in the middle, since the lynching of our brother George Floyd, at the end of the day, there's been a lot more energy towards diversity and inclusion. So now our goal and mission now at this point is to really continue to help join efforts with other folks in the industry, like the AvaMed, who's been a supporter since day one, the MedTech innovators, et cetera, and really amplifying the messaging that we have. So from talking about things around clinical trials to talking about how do some of the top MedTech company in our industry view diversity and inclusion and active ways to improve where we're going and where we've been in the first place. These are the types of conversations we're going to have, and we're going to do it in a very creative way. Obviously, I know I can cook, and I think everyone on this call can, just by way of I can't taste your food. Totally joking about that. But at the end of the day, it should be a very, not just engage, or I would say educational experience, but it should be extremely interactive as well, too. We're looking forward to it. You get a free ticket, Joe.
Thank you. Last year I attended that. It was in Boston, and I think Kevin kicked us off, Lobo from Stryker, and was the keynote, if I'm not mistaken. And then, Medtronic was on the stage, right, and with Omar, and it's a powerful team, powerful message, and it's a very intimate setting. Even though I think we had a couple hundred people there last year, so it's a very, very important meeting for the entire industry. Not just the people it serves. Now, Angelique, you are a founder also of your own business. Is that correct?
Yeah, MedStem. We do implantable electronics for neurological diseases and disorders.
Tell me a little bit about the technology, where it came from, what the hopes of it are, where it sits in the regulatory pathway. You know I'm going to dig in on this because this is my thing. I'm going to geek out on it.
Wonderful. So we're actually really revolutionizing the way that leads, I say pacemaker-like devices. Since we're talking to an AvidMed audience, I'll use the official term neurostimulators. A lot of those devices are made by hand in terms of how they're actually assembled, particularly when you're talking about the part of that device that's stimulating nerves or neurons. Why that's important is because it increases the cost point of that device, but also it limits the availability of innovation that can be built into it. Let's take, for example, a cochlear implant. Many times patients are trying to decide either for themselves or for their children, right? Hey, should I get 2020 model of cochlear implant, or should I wait 15 years and get the surgery then? Because it's basically the equivalent of having a 1980s telephone technology for the rest of your life. That's how they conceive of it. So, well, in 40 years, will this be outdated? And you can't take the device out. And that's true of many of these implants. So we're really creating a manufacturing process where you can put in a whole host of features, whether you use them today or whether you use them 30 years from now, they're adaptable so that you can basically plug and play updates into the system. Whereas now, in many cases, the lead, the circuitry, everything is welded together, and then it's put into the body, and there's really no going backwards from that point for more recent updates.
So this device is an implantable. Is it an active class 3 device?
Yeah. In fact, the interesting thing about MedStem is that we are essentially facilitating the ultimate production of these devices. So we do just the lead side of the portion of the device. We don't interface directly to the FDA at all on our side, but we have to really consider the FDA requirements because our customers are going to interface to the FDA. In many cases, depending on what it is, it could be a 510K, it could be a PMA supplement in the cochlear implant space. It could be, as put that in quotation, simple as that. However, when you're totally redoing the manufacturing process, there's no simple as that. So we don't interface directly, but we make sure that the customers that we work with have everything they need to interface directly. And that's really been our competitive advantage in terms of making sure the manufacturing process is not just great, but the ability to get to the FDA and the durability and the safety of it is really well.
That's awesome. And that is probably, most people won't think about that as what is the updatable capabilities of it. And it sounds like it's device agnostic for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're working towards. Highly innovative. So we are still on the development side of this, but we made a long way forward, and we're really pushing the envelope in terms of let's finally address the challenges of what the human brain can do versus what the human hand could do. And in many cases, medical devices are limited by what the human hand can manipulate because it's still technicians looking under a microscope, micro welding, doing it. And so we want to get rid of that. We want to be 3D printing these devices. We want to be doing microfabrication. We don't want to be limited by the human hands.
Wow, it's an awesome device. So Javier, you also entrepreneur and founder of a medical device company or diagnostic company?
Absolutely. Yeah, so founder and CEO of Allergy. We consider ourselves a hybrid these days, digital health focused company with that medical device play. This company was started because I personally suffer from a ton of food allergies from pretty much, I'm going to have a safer MedTech colored breakfast, put it like that, due to the fact, totally joking, they always look out for me, right? But the larger problem is that this problem impacts 220 million people worldwide, right? The problem is around adherence by way of folks not carrying their life-saving EpiPen or anything like it. And beyond that, the bad behavior or behavioral health issues, right? Not eating the right ingredients, not being communicating effectively with your doctors and allergists. So what we're building is a proactive patient engagement platform for those impacted by this life-threatening condition. Starting off with a redesigned EpiPen or auto-injector for epinephrine that has a form factor that allows it to fit to the back of a phone case. Looks like a battery case to save your phone life, but we want to save your own life, your kid's life, etc. To date, we're in the process of submitting to the FDA. We're looking at late 2021, 2022. Being that there's a drug component, we are classified as a drug delivery device, so we have a little bit of a different walk, but ultimately the digital health side that we have definitely fits into what we've been up to with this greater programming around MedTech Color. Our mobile application is a tool to allow yourself, anyone that has care of your kids, anyone that should know not just where you're at, what you're alert to, and how to save your life, but specifically what are the things that are causing issues, right? Lastly, I'll talk about where we're going in the future. We have basically working on some market-leading innovation in the food allergy oral immunotherapy space. Basically, kind of I think Dr. Johnson said it best. There's some things we do well as an organization. How do we fit into the industry as a whole and be more of a platform towards it all, right? That's definitely helped to pick up a lot of steam in the middle of COVID, for God's sake. And I think that's just a testimony, not just of our company, but also being motivated by the Dr. Johnsons and obviously being connected by Kwame and MedTech Color. I can't say enough good things about how companies from Louisville and Detroit, and I think, to be honest, Dr. Johnson's been a force. Companies like myself in Detroit as well, too, have gotten access to both coasts, a number of organizations, not even just the sponsors, but dedicated VCs, partners, et cetera, regulatory individuals that can really help us get smarter as fast as possible. And that's really helped us pick up the momentum of the food allergy industry over the last couple. So we're doing a lot. We're a small but mighty team. And I think the support of our overall orgs from now MedTech Color to AdvaMed has really made it feasible.
So both of you are entrepreneurs. Both of you are diversity minority. Both of you had the courage to start your own organizations. I've been in MedTech for 30 years, underrepresented by people of color in general, let alone those who, one, had the opportunity, two, had the courage, and three, knew how to drive their pathway to getting that flag in the ground and starting it. So there are others out there, Latinx, people of color, Black, brown, wherever you want to take it. How do you get started and don't necessarily allow the very real headwinds to slow you down?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I think it's very important to know your stakeholders and engage early and often, right? I'm from Chicago originally, so forgive me, I'm going to throw out my triangle for the patients, payers, and providers, the triangle offense. Beyond that, knowing the refs, FDA, I'll throw all the sports analogies to divert our attention from what we listened to last night. But at the end of the day, all jokes aside, I mean, at the end of the day, we see that there's a lot of different opportunities to ensure that we're doing this the right way. So number one, getting involved in the MedTech Color. I believe that, I think I started back in 2018, and that was about a year into really us kind of figuring things out. And just even outside of other organizations and other, I'll say, pitch competitions that I've been associated with, it was just super welcoming, right? I think it was, sometimes it's in within. I think sometimes you kind of think that you stand out a bit too much, but these days I stand out, and we all stand out in a good way, right? We're in that room for a reason. And, just owning that knowledge, owning the fact that you legit are the world expert in whatever it is that your startup is, own that, right? And from there, build your team. It takes a village to build a med tech or any type of pharma company in general, in my opinion. And I think it's super important to have relationships across the spectrum. So from industry leaders in X field, we're in the allergy space. I sit on the board for one of the food allergy organizations out here, to making sure you have deep relationships with pharma, et cetera. And beyond that, keeping that tribe and keeping that network available. And that's something that this org has helped me specifically, and some others have helped as well too.
Angelique, your thoughts on, I've got somebody wanted to start a company and a person of color, and they're just like, gosh, it's hard enough for me to get a mortgage, let alone open up a company. So give me some thoughts as to what is the pep talk for that person, and then the deliverables.
Yeah. So the first thing I always tell people is that I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I had no intention of starting a company. I kind of got into this through pitch competitions, which is why I'm very passionate about the pitch competition that MedTech Color is putting together, especially because of the focus is on entrepreneurs of color. Pitch competitions, I cannot praise them enough. I think when we get older in the field, we feel like Why would you? But going back and remembering the early days, it was a time to vet the idea in front of venture capitalists, angel investors, to have them tear apart your business model, to have them connect you to other people in the industry you otherwise would not have known, because usually there's kind of a camaraderie in these pitch competitions. It's painful, but usually after they're done, ripping you a new one, they say like, hey, you need to talk to this person over here. So it's a great way to connect. So I would definitely say pitch competitions. And then in terms of a more personal matter, I always tell people there's no great time to start a company, just like there's no great time to have a baby. I don't have any kids, but from what I hear, you can do all the planning you want to, but when it comes out, it comes out. So, I tell people just dive off the cliff and, pray to God that there's a parachute that opens up, but you're never going to feel like it's not diving off the cliff.
Or learn to fly on the way down, right?
Yeah, learn to fly on the way down, Lord.
Kwame, you've been really at the lead of the pack on this. You and my friend Ibrahim have been leading the way over time. The first thing I'd ask you is, are there any organizations that deserve a light to be shown on them that are truly invested in this MedTech color initiative and pushing forward the minority, people of color, that category that we should call out now and say, these VCs are really truly engaged. These strategics, evidence-based, are truly engaged. Are there any that come to mind first before I get off this subject?
Well, wow, you threw a little zinger there for me. I wasn't expecting that. I would say on the face of it, and thank you, Joe, our platinum sponsors are ones that I want to call out. And it's actually a fairly diverse group. So the obvious ones you may guess, Medtronic, Johnson & Johnson are platinum sponsors, and we're having conversations about how they get more operationally involved. Johnson & Johnson will actually provide 3 masterclass facilitators for our pitch competition, and they will host 3 rooms in our breakfast as one example. But we also have some organizations that you may not expect. The California Healthcare Foundation, which has a particular mission to reach the Medicaid population and fund digital health solutions in that space. They raised their hand and said, we want to get involved. And Danaher, the largest medical device company that you never heard of, they were our initial platinum sponsor and has been with us for 3 years now. So I want to call attention to them in terms of corporates that have really been involved. And, there are VCs who have historically been in this arena for years. One that jumps out is Kapoor Capital. If you just go to their website, they've been focused on this issue of equity broadly, and they have a leader for a MedTech practice specifically where they're investing through this lens. There's another, Toyo, an investor with a fund that has this as part of their thesis as well. So those are some that come off the top of my head, and thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, look, I think there's enough footage and talk tracks around things that are going wrong, but we should also celebrate the good news and the people who are doing the right thing regardless if it's a CNN world or not. So I always like to focus on that, right? So an interesting subject, and I know it's a driver for MedTech color, and it is not recognized in the industry, but it's the coverage or lack of coverage and the diversity in clinical trials. The numbers are just skewed the wrong way. It's interesting for us to explore the reasons why, potentially, and then drive attention towards those in regards to getting the right population covered. And we can start from the present day sort of scourge, the vaccination, and the balance of clinical trial equity there, and then moving backwards. So I know that's an initiative for you. You want to take us through that and just give us a top end, and then I may have some questions in there that digs deeper into the data.
Yeah, so we've been interested in this topic because we believe, and we've looked at the data that around healthcare disparities. So all of the founding members from the very beginning said we want to focus on this, and we set a big, hairy, audacious goal to try and reach at least 10,000 patients over the next 10 years. And the way we're starting that journey is through thought leadership. So Neda Hanafi, who also sits on the board, is leading a panel at AdvaMed focused on diversity in clinical trials. She's brought together leaders from the FDA, Boston Scientific, and the goal is to have an action-oriented conversation about tools people can use. And it's also, so tools like reaching the African-American community through partnerships with trusted constituents. So practically what that looks like is someone like the president of Howard University getting on CNN and saying, we need you to enroll your patients, Black people should enroll at Howard University Medical Center in this vaccine trial for COVID because there's nearly double representation in the mortality rate relative to the population of African Americans. So kind of going broad to specific, those are some things we're doing and some tactics we think make sense to address that problem.
Yeah, so in the community, just for our viewers, the population of persons of color is 13.4% of the population. Less than 5% of all clinical trials represent people of color. When you look at the mix, even on the vaccine side of things, I think the numbers I have here, 32% are represented by 4 groups that are usually the most at risk right now, right? African American is, again, 5%, but 13% of the U.S. population. And between Black, African American, Latinx, and American Indian, less than 25% of the population is represented there. And then when you look at the, people of color, what you've got here is you are more predisposed for hypertension. You are more predisposed for diabetes, right? You are more predisposed for just in general heart failure. And that means that this COVID is going to attack you more aggressively based on genetic makeup. Yet you're not covered in the vaccination side of things. So how do we fix this? You gave some areas. Is it trust? Is it education? Is it access? Do we need medical device and pharmaceutical companies to actively go into the communities? Thoughts there, Angelique? What are your thoughts?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, you have, going back to the Tuskegee experiment, a huge distrust. You had forced fertilizations. So you have all these things that in the Black community may seem ancient history to other people, but to us it's very relevant because these things get passed down from generation to generation. You have Black women, recently studies have shown that when they exercise voice, pain or something to their physician, that they're much less likely to be taken seriously. So when you take all of that in combination as an African American and somebody says, here's a clinical trial, sometimes the first thought is, dear God, that, I don't want to be, end up in a bad situation. However, if you don't have African Americans in clinical trials, it basically is, you're basically guaranteed to end up in a bad situation. And so I think it is both building that trust. We had talked a little bit as MedTech Color about this concept of, if in a perfect world, we would sort of almost curate. It's hard to do that. Clinical trials, you just don't know. You are signing up for risk when you take them. But in any way possible, we would like to be able to curate, to say, hey, maybe these are trusted agencies, trusted clinical facilities, trusted places where at least there's a little bit more security around them. And then you're also talking about just awareness. I have neurostimulators have been around for a while, deep brain stimulators, cochlear implants have been around for 30 years. It is surprising to me the number of African American individuals that I come across that are unaware of the technology, and that is in part because their doctors are not recommending the technology to them. And so again, when you have an opportunity for a doctor to recommend a technology that's already approved, that doctor is building a relationship so that in case something's on the forefront, they now can recommend the next stage. But it's, to me, it's very much so all tied in together and definitely needs to be addressed from multiple angles.
Mm-hmm. And for those who don't understand the Tuskegee situation, what went on there, and also with Henrietta Lacks, that situation, the Tuskegee was syphilis related, and they were used as a control group in regards to the clinical trial unfairly. And Henrietta Lacks with cervical cancer, and she really was the patient one in regards to harvesting her cells, and those were used. And made people billions of dollars, and that family was never recognized for that and was not even made aware of it. So there's certainly a reason for distrust within the community. So Javier, your thoughts on this? How about communication within the network? In general, we've got people below the poverty level when we look at people of color. There are out-of-pocket costs with clinical trials, right? There's scheduling issues when sometimes you've got issues with having free time. And then sometimes, people of color won't be included because in general, high blood pressure could be a precursor to keeping you out of it because you're not the ideal patient to make this clinical trial go through and the protocol met. So thoughts there?
Yeah, for sure. I think Kwame and Dr. Johnson knocked it out the park. To add to it, I'll say, it definitely is at the top of the ladder. It's all about education, trust, obviously. That could be done in a number of different ways. What we see going on with, not to take it down that's other path, but, the activation around getting folks to vote, right? I'm not saying at that scale, but, if we put energy and that type of momentum towards clinical trials, we could do something very special. Almost a fifth of the GDP. I would not be surprised if the fifth of the GDP plus right now has been spent on healthcare. Whatever stats we can Google, it's over with. So if we are able to, this is a proactive approach, right? To make sure that, as I mentioned, we have our upcoming panel with members that actually work for the FDA. Kwame used to be at the FDA as well as Netta, right? Trusted advocates in our community that literally care, have family that looks like you, wants you to be okay, wants you to make sure that, we're providing the necessary data to make things happen. And you're not going to have a 100% success rate, but if we can move the needle forward towards a little bit, drawing closer on the trust side, I think that's going to be a win. It's not going to be done in the next year, 2 years. It's going to be a multi-year approach. And I think with the collaboration that we have, not just through MedTech Color and our sponsors, but really some of the nonprofits that are in a lot of the communities, right? You think about, you talked about high blood pressure, different comorbidities and things like that. That's really a conversation around social determinants of health, and as to why a lot of this is happening in the first place. So it's actually a multi-tiered approach. I think the social determinants of health definitely sits at the very top of, in my opinion, as far as ways to kind of have that conversation, because now we're being human with each other. Empathy is at the top of it now. Now, hey, by the way, based upon what I know about you, you should check this out, but not the bait and switch, right? So, as a trusted advocate of your community, how do you keep that trust year 1, year 2, year 3, beyond? And that's where, holding, pharma, MedTech accountable, at the same token, holding our communities accountable. We do that, we can do something special.
Yeah, I'm even going to go out on a limb here, and the two of you can't because you got devices in with the FDA. But I'm going to, as you bring me through this continuum, we can hold the MedTech companies and the pharma companies totally responsible, right? Having said that, we also need to look up to the FDA. And does the FDA need to say, listen, right now we have such an appropriately tight protocol on outcomes on clinical trials. And for the most part, 94%, 95% of the population have been white. Yet we are not allowing a portion, right, 15, 16% of the population who are going to have probably pre-existing conditions, comorbidities in place that would not even allow them to be considered, because otherwise, by default, that drug or that device is not going to have, we're already splitting hairs on clinical trials. So I would like to see the FDA itself say, listen, we're going to go ahead and create a little bit of an outlier, inclusiveness here on this patient population, whether it's African American, Latinx, Native American, because they have comorbidities that otherwise would put patients right outside the control limits out of the gate. So it's on you, FDA.
Well, you know what? That's why, MedTech Color is so important. We're literally going to be talking about this and more with members of the FDA. And I think it's an honest question and an honest statement, honestly.
Kwame, what didn't we cover so far? I always get fired up over this stuff.
Well, I really appreciate everything you said. One thing I will highlight, and I really enjoy having observed from the very beginning, hey, this started with an idea in 2016, me sitting down with Michelle McMurray-Heath, and now we have a network of nearly 1,000 stakeholders, from allies to African Americans, Latinx, et cetera, that really believe in this effort. We went from 1 platinum sponsor to 6, and really we are open to more partners who really want to put some capital to work here to move the needle. This is an effort that is multi-year, as Angelique and Javier have alluded to, and we're here for the long term. The last thing I'll say, Joe, that is interesting to me is we've built this community and we're being recognized as a neutral place where you can have access to great talent. It's kind of like when people talk about this pipeline issue and they forget that there are these institutions called HBCUs that have hundreds and thousands of talented, trained engineers. Angelique went to one, I went to one. So we're creating a space where all the Medtronics of the world have to do is send in a position description and have access to this great talent in a one-stop. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up that I'm excited about having observed.
I love that. And we need more of a gateway like that for the diversity side of things. And at least, look, get the player up to bat. That's it. No promises. Get the player up to bat. And after that, it's on the player, right? But I don't think enough people maybe understand the pathway. I'll let you know, HR a lot of times is overworked and under-resourced. So getting reminded of that in pieces like this are important. Also, going to dig a little deeper, because when people hear put capital to work, they're like, oh, I don't know. Talk to me about capital. Is that $1,000? Is that $50,000? Is that $100,000? You know, this is a Jerry Lewis telethon. Can I get on the board for $1,000 into the community?
Yeah, so no, you can't, Joe. Not for $1,000. You know, it's funny. I had a conversation with one of the world's largest employers who happens to be a medical device company. Mm-hmm. It's not the one that you're thinking of. Mm-hmm. And they said, you know, what are the levels? And they want to know, how do we get operationally involved? And right now the levels are modest. You can be a platinum sponsor for $25,000. But to really move the needle, we need pitch competitions where we're awarding $500,000, $1 million every year to really make an impact. And that's just kind of the start. So what we're really interested in growing these partnerships where we can have relationships where bigger dollars are being put to work, so we can create 20 more Angeliques, 20 more Javiers, and really change the look of this industry.
Yeah. Yeah, and 500K to 1 million means the world to those entrepreneurs, and it's executive lunches for a quarter in the big players. So the big players need to step up on this, in my opinion. And a lot of them are doing the right things, but from an economic perspective, money is very important. It's the fuel that allows this growth to happen, and it's that fuel that allows these entrepreneurs to get their startup, to get their shingle up, to get through the FDA, to transact an organization, to get the VCs leaning in, because then it becomes sort of a domino effect that force multiplier of that $500,000 could end up meaning $100 million on a transaction, and you change an industry that way. So I'm all with you on that one. I get fired up over this. I'm sorry.
That's exciting. No, thank you, Joe. You said it perfectly.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys are busy. I certainly appreciate your time and candor and the subjects we talked about. Anything before we head out, Angelique, Javier, or Kwame?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm really happy to be a part of MedTech Color. I encourage anybody and everybody to get involved. This really isn't just a Black issue. It's not just an issue for people of color. It's an everybody issue when you don't have diversity and representation in the industry. So that's my hats off to Kwame for coming up with the genesis of the idea and saying, hey, who will join me on the mission? So I'm just happy to be a part of it. And of course, definitely check out MedStem. We have a website, especially if you're in neurostimulator space. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, you can see it on the bottom of the screen there, the website and the contact info. We'll make sure we get it on there as well. Javier, anything from you, my friend?
You know what? I'm just going to jump the gun on something we were going to announce after the MedTech Color breakfast around the Diamond membership that we have. It's $100,000. Kwame and I, we were talking about it offline, but at the end of the day, obviously dollars move the needle. So shamelessly want to make sure folks know about that. But obviously, if you're in a food allergy space and you have anyone that you know with a food allergy, we have a free app. Download it, allergy.com. We love feedback, but more than anything else, with regards to this conversation, really grateful for the network and at large. I think we're going to do really special things to close out 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you so much, Angelique, Javier, and Kwame. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the AdvaMed conference. Much success on the initiative of MedTech Color. This has been Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.